There's something fascinating about repeating a prayer that has been whispered by millions of voices over 2 millennia. Words spoken in the darkness of catacombs, in the heat of the desert, on the cold stones of medieval monasteries, and even within the walls of modern prison cells. The Lord's Prayer is not just a prayer, it's an ancient code of spiritual power, passed down like a hidden cipher, disguised as simplicity. Let's imagine someone named Elias. He never attended church regularly, but he grew up hearing his grandmother recite the Lord's Prayer every night before bed. One day, after losing his job, going through a painful breakup, and feeling utterly lost, Elias decides to return to those words, not out of faith, but by chance, or perhaps by instinct. He begins repeating the Lord's Prayer every morning. At first, it feels empty, an ancient formula, almost mechanical, but after a few days, something shifts, not in the external world, but within him, a sense of grounding, of belonging, as if by uttering those words, he's connected to something greater, something that existed long before him and will continue to exist long after. This story is not unique. Many have discovered by chance or desperation that the Lord's Prayer has the power to reorder inner chaos. But why? The answer may lie in something science is beginning to understand. Prayer activates specific brain patterns. Recent studies in neurotheology show that repetitive practices like mantras, prayers, and rituals engage areas of the brain associated with mindfulness, compassion, and emotional regulation. In other words, when you say, "Our Father who art in heaven," you're doing much more than asking for protection or bread. You're programming your nervous system for altered states of consciousness, and this leads to an unsettling question. Was the Lord's Prayer designed from the start as a tool for inner transformation? Not as a passive request, but as a vibrational key capable of aligning the individual with a higher frequency of existence. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, language holds creative power. Remember the phrase, "In the beginning was the Word." The Word doesn't just describe reality, it shapes it. And the Lord's Prayer then might be a condensed form of this creation, a sequence of syllables charged with intention, crafted to elevate the spirit and rewire the mind. Now imagine an experiment. A group of people from different cultures, languages and religions gathered in silence. None of them necessarily believes in Christianity, yet they all agree to recite the Lord's Prayer together. Something happens in that moment, a synchronization, a shared vibration. It's as if, by speaking those words, they tap into something archetypal, a collective memory stored in the human unconscious. And this brings me to another reflection. Is the prayer less about speaking to God and more about remembering who we are when aligned with our own truth? The Lord's Prayer is not just a plea, it's a map, an energetic guide, an ancestral code that even in these fluid and uncertain times still endures. Because it doesn't rely on doctrines or rituals, it relies only on you speaking it and allowing it to speak you back. A study published in the Journal of Consciousness Studies revealed that people who recite the Lord's Prayer daily show a significant reduction in cortisol, the stress hormone, and an increase in heart coherence, a state where heartbeats become more regular, indicating emotional balance. This suggests that the prayer acts as a practice of psychophysiological self-regulation. In other words, it doesn't just calm the soul, it organizes the body. Let's return to Elias. After weeks of repeating the Lord's Prayer every morning, he begins to notice subtle but profound changes. He feels more centered, less reactive, as if he's found a fixed point within himself, something unchanging amidst the external storm. One day, by chance, he walks into a bookstore and finds a book on religious symbolism. It's not something he'd normally pick up, but something draws him to it. Inside, there's an ancient analysis of the Lord's Prayer by mystics of the Esoteric Christian tradition. One passage catches his eye. The Lord's Prayer does not ask for miracles, it asks for transformation. That sentence hits him like a bolt of lightning. Until then, he'd been praying as if trying to fix something broken. But what if the prayer wasn't meant to change the world out there, but to change him? Elias decides to go deeper. He begins studying the hidden meanings behind each line. He discovers that our Father is not just an invocation of the divine, but a recognition that we all share the same origin. That who art in heaven doesn't refer to a physical place, but to a higher state of consciousness. That hallowed be thy name isn't blind worship, but an affirmation that the sacred is in everything, including himself. And when he reaches, "Give us this day our daily bread," he realizes it's about far more than food. It's a reminder to live in the present, to trust in life, to let go of control. And finally, when he says, "Lead us not into temptation," he understands it's not about fear or punishment. It's a plea for clarity amidst the illusions that arise along the way. Elias realizes then that the Lord's Prayer is not a prayer of submission. It's a prayer of spiritual empowerment. And this makes me wonder, what if this prayer was designed as a tool for spiritual initiation? An ancestral code that, when repeated with attention, activates dormant levels of consciousness. In the Hermetic tradition, for example, it's believed that certain sequences of words carry a frequency capable of aligning the human body with cosmic patterns, something akin to what we now call vibrational resonance. The idea is that by speaking specific words with intention, you don't just alter your inner state, you tune into a greater reality. And this isn't just mysticism. Recent studies have shown that specific sounds can alter brain patterns and even influence deep emotional states. In 2024, a team from Princeton University conducted an experiment where volunteers recited the Lord's Prayer aloud, maintaining rhythmic breathing and closed eyes. The results were striking. Nearly 70% of participants reported feelings of unification with their surroundings, as if they had stepped out of time and entered a state of pure presence. This leads to another reflective question. Is the Lord's Prayer not just any prayer, but a protocol for awakening, disguised as a simple ritual? Perhaps that's why it has survived so long. Not because someone decreed it must be repeated, but because somehow it touches something true within us. An ancient memory, a spiritual program embedded in human language. And if we think of it as an ancestral code, it makes sense that it still works. Because codes like this don't require conscious understanding to operate. Just as a gene can carry instructions for something we've never seen, the prayer may carry instructions for a state of being we haven't yet lived. So think with me. How many times have you recited the Lord's Prayer without truly hearing what it was saying? How many times was it trying to tell you something, but you weren't ready to listen? Because perhaps that's the great secret. The Lord's Prayer is not just a prayer, it's a mirror, it's a map, it's a portal, and it's always waiting for the right moment to open. Let's go back to the beginning. Remember that question that opened this video? What if all your relationships were repetitions of an ancestral drama? Well, the Lord's Prayer is much more than a traditional prayer. It's an energetic code, yes, but also a bridge between you and something so deep, so ancient, that it may not even have a name. It's as if, by speaking these words, you're activating a dormant program within yourself. A program not written by religion or doctrine, but by human history itself. By the suffering, the hopes, the silent cries of millions who before you looked to the sky and asked, "Is anyone there?" And in that act, in that simple repetition, there is power. Not the power to dominate, control, or change the world by force, but the power to be transformed, to be reorganized, to be reminded of who you truly are, even when everything seems lost. This is the hidden truth of the Lord's Prayer. It doesn't exist to ask for protection. It exists to awaken you, because each line holds a key. Hallowed be thy name. Remember that everything is sacred, including you. Thy kingdom come. The kingdom isn't in the future. It's in you now. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Let the divine descend here. Let the sacred inhabit the everyday. Give us this day our daily bread. Live in the present. Trust in life. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Set yourself free. Unbind your heart. Lead us not into temptation. Stay vigilant amidst delusions. Deliver us from evil. Acknowledge the chaos, but don't let it rule you. Each phrase is an instruction, a step, an invocation. And if you stop to think, this isn't just a prayer, it's a spiritual survival manual, an ancestral code designed to withstand the centuries and still work even when everything seems to have lost meaning. Perhaps that's why so many return to it in their darkest moments. Because the Lord's Prayer doesn't promise quick fixes, it promises presence, the presence of something greater and the presence of yourself, standing before the infinite. So, I invite you to do this now. Recite the Lord's Prayer, whether aloud, in thought, or in silence. And this time, don't think of it as a religious formula. Think of it as a frequency, as a code, as a key that unlocks a door you didn't even know existed within you.